Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Was the Child of Dark Prophecy Part 4. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
The area around Onotachi, outside of the capital of Fire Country. Country on fire. Sir, I still think there are better places to live in the capital than my hideout, Sasori said in a low, hurried voice. He walked slowly with his Haruko puppet while hunched over inside it. Deidara was going on and on about something that he didn't want to hear. I haven't used that place to hide for a few years, my lord. I'm sure you'd rather stay in the capital, and I'll pay for it. Naruto put his hands on his hips and looked up at the small wooden building in front of him. It was as wide as his arms were spread out and as tall as his arms were over his head. The termites and small bee colony that lived in the small building made it look like it was falling apart. There were clumps of weeds around the shack, but when he looked around, he saw nothing but trees for miles, all the way to the capital walls, which were about 3 kilometers away from where he stood. The trees around him, some of which Sasori had planted himself, gave him shade and kept him safe. This told them how old the hideout was. When the king felt his sister put her arms through his and hug him, resting her head on his shoulders and smiling, it didn't surprise him. She said, "This feels familiar," and put her nose on her brother's neck. When Naruto answered, he gave a nod. They used to live in a rat hole like this, but this was 100 times better. Yes, but this is better, he said to show what he was thinking. So did his sister. Sasori, is there a safety system? Yes, sir, it's just a chakra sensor seal that opens when I get close to it. What's a backdoor seal? Naruto didn't have any of the puppet man's chakra on him, and since it was the middle of the night, there was no way he could get it. There's a key under the floorboard inside, and I have it in case I'm low on chakra. That's all. Stay alert, Sasori, Naruto said, and the red-haired puppet man, who was hiding inside his Haruko puppet body, answered by bowing and putting his hand over his heart seal. Of course, sir. The king cut the connection and picked up the black duffel bag his sister had dropped in front of them with his left arm. He slung it over his shoulder and walked toward the shack. Naruto used her right arm to open the door and winced when it fell in. Naruto told her not to worry, but Sasori won't care. The inside was as small as he thought, so he had to leave his sister outside and go in by himself. The floorboards cried out in pain, and his Rinnegan lit up in the dark to show him where a loose floorboard was in the middle. He used his foot to lift the board, and the key fell into his hand. After that, there was a second-long shake that made Naruko's hair stand up on the back of her neck. At the very back of the small shack, 3 floorboards slide out of the way to show a spiral staircase going down. As he started to walk down the narrow stairs, he felt his sister grab his shoulder. She followed him, trusting that he could see danger coming because the small space made her have terrible flashbacks. She shut her eyes tight and let her brother watch out for her. As soon as they reached the bottom of the stairs, there was a low buzz, and then the lights went on, revealing a room that was about 4 times as big as the Hokage's office. There were 3 work tables in the middle of the room. They were connected by strong bars that were welded together, but they were also far enough apart to show that they had been different tables before. On the connected tables were pieces of unfinished puppets made of wood and metal. Some of the parts were weapons, like a hidden part of an arm with kunai launchers or a toxic green eye that spat out acid. There were also finished and unfinished puppets hanging on the walls, staring at people while getting dusty. Strangely, there were no spider webs in the hideout and not that much dust. Naruto looked around with his Rinnegan eyes to see if there were any traps that his servant didn't tell him about. The room looked and felt like it hadn't been used in years, and Naruto's eyes fell on a tall, cylindrical glass container in the back. Its top touched the ceiling. The container was stuck in the wall and had a red and blue knob on the left side and a fairly large nozzle on top. His eyes jumped over the box and went to the far left of the Red Scorpion's workshop, hideout, where a large banner of the missing ninja was stuck to the wall in blood-red paint. The banner showed a red scorpion, which looked both scary and simple. Under it, the wooden parts of a bed were strewn across the wall, and a mattress was on top of them. When the king's sister tightened her grip on his shoulder, he instinctively put his hand on hers and gently squeezed it to get her to open her eyes. He didn't say a word. As the girl looked around, her bright purple eyes opened and got bigger. The place was well lit and didn't look like it was falling apart, which was different from how it looked from the outside. But just looking at the puppets on the walls made the girl frown. Sasori of the Red Sands is one of my most trusted grounders. He is an S-rank missing ninja from Sonogakure who defected after killing the Sandaime Keisuke. but he submitted to my will after I proved beyond a doubt that I was a superior. His sister's hand slid down his left arm and intertwined with his fingers. The king put the duffel bag on the ground and let his sister walk around the hideout. She looked up at the puppets on the walls with a strange interest while she listened to her brother talk. He is such a good puppeteer that he found a way to trade his mortal body for a wooden one that can do things that most puppeteers could only dream of. For example, he is one of the only people who fights with both human puppets and regular wooden puppets. She nodded and looked at him with deeply furrowed eyes. It looked like something their dead godfather would do. But Naruto was trying to reassure her that it wasn't. I think this is probably the last place Sasori was truly human, he said, pointing to the bed and the things under it. Because he isn't made of flesh and blood, but instead of wood, metal, and chakra, he doesn't need to sleep as long as he has chakra. The twins walked around the tables in the middle of the room hand in hand. Naruto carefully ran her fingers over the parts so as not to set off any traps, but Naruto shook his head and told her that the traps on the parts had been turned off for a long time. Naruto smiled a little when she wrinkled her nose. She then gave him a playful smile and said, "I'm going to guess he's a weird guy. And I don't mean to offend." She could be rude at times, but she did her best to be nice to the people who worked for her brother. Also, Sasori was kind enough to let them stay the night in his hideout, so the least she could do was be nice, even though the puppet man wasn't there. He's a little different, but I promise it's not bad. When they got to the glass cylinder, the girl took her hand out of his. She slipped out of her blood-stained red dress and got closer to Naruto, who raised an eyebrow and looked at her in a way that teased her. Her naked body was close to him. "It seems to have enough space for two." "Well, it seems like it does," he said. She smiled wider, her white teeth shining up at him, and he smiled back. "What do you want to do?" She whispered. "I want to try what Orochimaru did to Kabuto," and lightly ran her pointer finger up his under-armored belly, up his chest, and up to his chin. "I can be Kabuto, and you can be," she said, leaning forward. Naruto tilted his head down a little, almost bringing them closer together. His right arm wrapped around her and pulled her closer. She let out a small gasp, but it wasn't enough to stop her from smiling. He could see her nose turning a deep red as she kept talking and pressed her body even closer to his. "You can be Orochimaru." She was talking about the time Orochimaru slithered up behind Kabuto and ripped off his pants while the godfather and his assistant were doing a mind-numbing blood experiment on the twins at the same time and in the same room. The older man and the younger man thought the kids in front of them were too crazy to notice, but the twins were part Uzumaki. It seems that Orochimaru had a lot of sexual frustration that he had been holding in for a long time. Since they finally had a chance, he pushed Kabuto up against a wall and had his way with him. The man with silver hair didn't say anything, far from it. The snake man fought with Kabuto for an hour before he finally let him fall to the ground. The twins found it scary, gross, disgusting, and fascinating all at the same time. Not because it was a guy fighting another guy, but because Orochimaru did and made Kabuto do some crazy things. Why do snakes exist? Why snakes? When Naruto thought about doing that to Naruto, he could feel himself getting warmer. He didn't want to ruin the mood or get rid of the strong scent of desire coming from her body by telling his sister that the cylinder with the glass wall wasn't a shower, but a high-pressure power wash used to clean nettles. It was so strong that it could tear skin off of bone. But she didn't need to know that. He knew more than a few water jutsu that would keep her from noticing. Naruto wrapped her other arm around his neck and whispered as she bit her bottom lip and pressed her breasts against his chest. She bent over and whispered into his left ear. "You can do." The words sent wonderful waves down his back and made him hold her closer. "I don't care what you want." "Damn." She easily pulled away from him and turned around before he could see her breasts. As she walked into the power wash, he could see her cute pale white butt slink sway a little. The tiny spots of blood on her body did nothing but drive him crazy. She looked back over her shoulder, and Naruto swallowed hard when he saw the longing in her eyes. He took off his clothes right away. He slapped his chest with his hand, and his obsidian under armor shook and crumpled as it fell to his boots, which he quickly took off as he ran to her. His hand went to Naruto's black duffel bag, which was still sitting at the bottom of the stairs. He unzipped it, and a bar of deep green soap zipped out and into his hand just as he stepped into the power wash. He waved his right hand above them as she put her hands on the wall, and looked at him over her shoulder with big purple eyes. This made him think of a B-rank water jutsu. "Let the water out, Rainmaker." Dark clouds gathered above their heads and started to drop small drops of rain on them. Naruto turned around and gasped as Naruto pinned her to the white-tiled wall behind her. "Who cares what I want, huh?" 1 hour later. "Bro," Naruto asked from one of the 3 tables in the middle of the room. She was wearing a black ninja skirt, a red shirt, and black sandals. She didn't really like wearing it, but since her brother wore a similar outfit, she didn't mind too much. Her long red hair was pulled back into a short ponytail that hung over her left shoulder, and she crossed her skinny legs. Her bright purple eyes were fixed on Naruto, who was sitting at another table next to her with his legs crossed, his palms together in the ram hand seal, and his elbows sticking out. He looked like he wasn't breathing at all. His godly eyes were closed, and his back was stiff. He opened one eye just a little bit and smiled softly before closing the other one. What's going on? I had to do a lot of things to get to this point. I had to kill Orochimaru, start a successful, highly advanced kingdom in the sky, control the best army on the planet, and have the respect of all my people. I even had to kill Danzo. The thing is, he screwed his lips to the side and sighed. We were meant to do those things together. Naruko's shoulders sagged as she looked at her brother with a sad smile. She reached out with her right hand and gently touched his left knee. Oh bro, it's fine. I may not have been alive when you did all those things, but I don't mind. You did those things to make our dreams come true. Our dreams. He rubbed his knee and opened one black eye with a red ring around it, giving her a shaky smile. You could have killed your father on your own and nothing would have changed. I know. You still haven't told me what you're doing, she said. She moved closer and turned around to face him, mirroring the way he was sitting and leaning toward him curiously as she listened. I'm not sure if you heard the whole story, but when we were born, our parents were attacked by a mysterious man in a mask. This man ripped out the Kyuubi, which drove our mother crazy. Naruto nodded and told him to keep going, even though his eyes stayed closed as he thought. Can you picture what our lives would be like if that hadn't happened? I can. I'm not sure if I would want to change it, but it would have been nice to have two loving parents. I agree, and based on how far I've come with our goals and dreams, this outcome is much better than if he hadn't attacked. I'm saying I have a small suspicion about where that masked man is. She turned her head to the side and made a cute frown with her eyebrows. Do you think you've found him? Naruto bobbed her head up and down as she thought about the woman who gave her the duffel bag with extra clothes and gear. She is a division head. There are 10 division heads for the Sukai forces and 1 for the civilians. He paused to see if she was still trying to figure out what he was saying. She waved for him to keep talking. One of my division heads, Yua Kuso, is in charge of espionage and infiltration. That means he is in charge of all the spies I have in every country and every underground group. For example, I had a mole in Konoha who worked directly for Danzo, and that old fool didn't even know it. Even though his eyes were still closed, the twins shared a sinister grin. It was always nice to hear that they had fooled one of Konoha's smartest people. My point is that there is an S-rank organization with about 10 missing S-rank ninjas. I have 3 spies in their ranks. Yua Kuso keeps me updated on anything the spies can't tell me themselves, but I gave 2 of my spies their side mission in addition to gathering tailed beasts. He was silent for a moment as his smile faded and his face relaxed. After a short time, the girl asked, what was the goal? I wanted them to find out if anyone in their ranks had anything to do with the Kyuubi attack 16 years ago. Shinakora, the human form of the Nine-Tailed Soul, she said quickly, meaning she knew who the combat maid was and that she was the right hand of the king. She talks to them often about what happened that night because she had trouble remembering the details because she was in a genjutsu. After a harmless hypnosis session from Hamato Toshi, my head of intelligence and interrogation. He is very good at hypnosis to get information from people. She was able to remember a few important details from that night that helped us figure out who the masked man was and where he was. Naruto scratched her chin and lowered her head as she thought about something important. Naruto knew this, so he stayed quiet and let her think until she told him to go on. The girl didn't care much about what would have happened if the masked man hadn't messed up their birth. Everything turned out fine in the end, but she'd be lying if she said she didn't feel a little bit angry at the man for what he did. The man was the direct cause of their mother going crazy, and he may have been the reason why they were on their own in Konoha. After his mother died, Naruto went through a lot of deep grief and depression, which made her blood boil. She clenched her fists and ground her teeth before closing her eyes and copying the hand seal Naruto was holding. This filled her body with chakra and helped her relax. It was a variation on a trick a sound ninja had taught her during a lesson on how to improve her chakra. She let out a breath and said, still standing in the same place as her brother and facing him as if they were on opposite sides of a mirror. Please keep going. She said that he had the Sharingan, that she could remember his chakra among one of her father's students when she was in Kushina, and that he called himself Madara Uchiha. He could feel her lightly frowning in question. Orochimaru didn't teach them history. Just physical and mental training and torture, so she didn't know who Madara was. But Naruto had memories of Orochimaru of the Sannin and a lot of other ninjas that he had acquired during one of his earlier trips to the ground. He also had plenty of time to study a lot. The boy decided to give Madara a little more detail. He is an old ninja who fought the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, more than 100 years ago. He even used the Kyuubi back then, just like this Madara did 16 years ago. Naruto said under her breath, "I'm doing the math," and Naruto listened in. If what you're saying is true, then the person claiming to be Madara is a fake, because if the real Madara fought the first about 100 years ago, and let's say they were in their late 40s at the time, then he should be dead. No ninja or human can stay alive for more than 120 years, and since the person claiming to be Madara was able to fight almost as well as father, then either he's a clone or he's a fan. Naruto said, "That's right," and smiled at her. Even though their eyes were closed, the girl could still feel his smile, and she blushed a little as she did. My people in the Akatsuki, which is the name of the S-rank organization, were able to use those 3 important pieces of information to zero in on one of their members, the one who supposedly brought them all together and made the Akatsuki. All that's left is for him to admit to attacking Konoha with the Kyuubi 16 years ago, Naruto said. "I was thinking as a way to say sorry for killing Orochimaru and Danzo by myself." Naruto let out a sigh of frustration and shook her head. Naruto ... bro ... He then quickly added that you could kill him yourself. "I know that killing him won't make Orochimaru and Danzo disappear, but..." When Naruto laughed, he had to stop. He didn't answer, and she sighed again. "I thought I told you it was fine," she said. "Okay, if it will make you happy, I'll kill him," she said with a smile. "After that, we can take the Akatsuki apart and go home for ice cream." Her eyes popped open, and she gave her twin a big smile. "You are the best brother in the world," she cheered, pumping her fist in the air. "I couldn't have asked for a better twin." When Naruto smiled, his lips moved. "Oh, you just said that." She grabbed his shoulders and pulled him into a strong hug. Even though his hands were still in the seal and his eyes were closed, the boy smiled happily. "I'm serious. I promise you won't regret it, bro," she said, letting him go. She jumped off the table and skidded over to the duffel bag next to the stairwell leading into the hideout. She opened it and took out a standard tanto. As she opened it a little more, she saw 3 dozen kunai, shuriken, a katana, a foldable bow staff, 2 rolls of bandages, 6 boxes of ration packs, 1 more set of spare clothes with smaller accessories like a scarf, gloves, boots, underwear, and a basic medical kit for people who couldn't use medical jutsu. "I'm going to brush up on my skills," she said. She hooked the kunai pouch on her left thigh and the shuriken pouch on her right hip, and spun the tanto in her left hand as she walked across the room to a human-sized puppet hanging on the wall. "Would it bother your spy if I used one of his puppets as a practice tool?" Naruto replied with a casual shrug. He won't care. The girl with the adamantine bones lifted the puppet while standing on her toes and carried it close to the table in the middle of the room, behind her brother. She found a place to put the puppet and hung it there. Her eyes got narrow, and she jumped on her heels while holding the deadly blade in a backwards grip and pointing a kunai at the dummy's head. She took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. You haven't told me what you're up to yet." Naruto let out a soft laugh and opened one eye. "Through one of my most trusted spies, I'm going to a meeting of the Akatsuki, a lot of miles away. Underground Akatsuki meeting room. Ainkid's Tower, Amagakure no Sato. Through the less physical outer path, a person who knew how to use a Rinnegan could get the ability to use black chakra rods. It could be used as a weapon to destabilize the chakra of anyone it was inserted into, since it was made of a very hard material. It could also be used to have limited control over the person it was inserted into, but only if the person gave the Rinnegan user permission, or if they were already dead. The 6 paths of pain were all dead bodies with chakra receivers, which are smaller versions of chakra rods, and a single path of the Rinnegan, except for the outer path. This is because the outer path kept all the paths of pain in sync with pain, Nagato. Naruto didn't like to put paths into dead bodies because he was more effective when he used them himself. There were a few small exceptions to this rule, though. "Conan," someone said, and the woman turned her head to the right and looked at the red skeleton head sitting on the throne. He had purple eyes with black rings, but they were not as strong or scary as Naruto's. He gave a light wheeze and let out the breath he had been holding. The Angel of Aim looked back at her in the mirror and also took a deep breath. She saw herself in the mirror, but with one small change. Her left eye was black with red rings around it. The angel's heart was fluttering, and she clasped her hands over her chest. She was almost overcome with pride and happiness because Naruto, after not using her for many years, had finally decided to use the 6 chakra receivers in her ears, 3 in each one on her chin, and the last one through her belly button. "Master," she said in a breathy voice, going against her image as a calm angel, as she saw Naruto's one-of-a-kind Rinnegan in her right eye filled with tears. Nagato gave a weak smile and sat back in his throne. He had been worried since Konan ran to the standing mirror in the throne room just minutes before all the Akatsuki members were supposed to be there. The woman turned to her longtime friend and gave him the biggest, happiest smile she had given him in more than a decade. "Finally, Nagato, Master is going to use me." The sick man shut his eyes and let out a sigh. "I'm guessing you don't care. It is an honor and a privilege to be our great king's eyes and ears," she said in a firm but shaky voice, turning around and slowly lifting her fingers to under her left eye, both amazed and afraid of what she was doing. Naruto couldn't fully control her because she didn't have enough chakra rods, but with the ones he implanted in her, with her permission, he was able to see through her eye and change her thoughts in his favor. Even so, she was happy to be her king's eye, so he didn't need to change her that much. She stood up straight, turned to face the mirror, and said in a light voice, "I'm sorry, my lord Naruto," I said. She didn't get a response, but that only made the quiet woman more enthusiastic. Nagato told the woman, "Put on the contacts. No one but Sesori should know that our lord is here," and the woman quickly pulled a small square out from under her cloak. As she put the contacts on, she quickly apologized to the Silent King. The contacts were light gray and hid Naruto's Rinnegan eye perfectly. "If our lord has decided to visit us, then it must be time," Konan said. She nodded and rubbed her face to smooth it out, fighting the urge to smile again. She pushed the mirror, and when it hit the wall, it turned over and became a grayish-black painted wall in the meeting room. They could hear someone walking a few feet away at the door, so they looked there. Sesori of the Red Sands walked in with his wooden face set to neutral. He was the deputy head of espionage and infiltration. Nagato said hello to the other spy and made a circle with his right index finger and thumb, as if turning an invisible knob. Sesori stopped suddenly at the door, causing Deidara to crash into his Haruko puppets as he ran after the puppeteer and told him a story. Sesori's eyes widened in surprise, and he tilted his head slightly to the right, toward Konan. She nodded as well. They could see the wooden man stifle a shiver and march forward. He took a seat on the right side of the long meeting table, 3 seats away from the leader of the Akatsuki. Deidara stood 2 seats away from Nagato, rubbing his nose and insulting his partner as he did so. Konan sat down on Nagato's right side, tilting her chin up and looking like the regal and deadly angel of aim. As more and more S-rank ninjas came, Nagato stayed in character, and looked down on each of them with his purple eyes with black rings. But inside his head, he remembered very well the day that he, his childhood friend, and everyone else in Amagakure joined the Tsukai forces. 5 years ago, there were only Nagato, Konan, Obaido, and Sesori in the Akatsuki. Most of them were hundreds of miles away from Hidden Rain, looking for and recruiting other qualified S-ranks to join their criminal organization. The sickly redhead and his childhood friend had stayed behind to take care of their village. Suddenly, they felt a big disturbance pass through the village's borders and walk out into the rain. When that happened, Naruto was only 11 years old. Flashback. As the intruder walked past the rain dome that covered the village, the whole place shook. Naruto was wearing a dark blue shirt with long sleeves, black pants, brown ninja boots, and an umbrella over his head. As he walked, the powerful child walked with an amused but chillingly cold smile on his face. His bright red umbrella kept him safe from the chakra rain. His boots splashed in the small puddles, but that didn't stop him. He was on a personal trip to every ninja village that Orochimaru had listed as mysterious and too dangerous to attack, like Kiriagakure, Hidden Darkness, Hidden Smoke, and Hidden Rain. Orochimaru was wary of some smaller villages, but he still went to and from them. He even kept slaves in labs, which Naruto freed and sent back to the Tsukai Kingdom, which was high in the sky over the ocean near Kumo. But he wasn't doing it for fun. He was trying to get information that his godfather was too scared to get himself so that he could make his new kingdom in the sky stronger. The information and knowledge he got from all the other villages was very helpful, so he quickly sent it back to Hamato Toshi, the head of intelligence and interrogation, so that the older ninja could better explain it to the other division heads, who would then train the soldiers to handle those situations. The last village was Amagakure no Sato. It was also where his spy, Sesori, told him a new group of criminals were getting together. He could already feel how much trouble he was causing, but he didn't care much. With each step, he sent shockwaves through the village that shook it but didn't make it fall apart, which he could have easily done. He let go of less than a quarter of the control he had over his chakra, but that was enough for those who could sense chakra to see a bonfire of hazy chakra around his body. He did the same thing with all the other dangerous hidden villages he had visited. He wanted them to see how dangerous he was and attack him with everything they had so he could watch, test, and report back to the kingdom. His division heads and people were not happy about letting their king leave their home without proper protection. But they did what he told them to do and stayed behind to build up the kingdom. Just a year before, Naruto had cut hidden sound in every other lab or slave pen that connected to it off the map by himself. He could clearly defend himself, but that didn't mean they had to like it. Because they were so proud that a preteen had marched into their village and beat their ninjas, the villages he went to never told other villages or even their allies. It was terrible. Naruto stopped when he felt 7 very powerful chakra signatures coming at him, followed by a small army of less powerful chakra signatures. Naruto's eyes flashed and a dome of energy from the Preta path covered his body as 3 missiles were fired at him. The warheads were quickly put out and clanked to the ground, dead and empty. When a mountain-sized ape tried to attack him from the sky, the ground broke apart and a sharp rock shot out. It cut into the ape's chest. When the boy felt a pull on his shirt, he laughed. He tightened his grip on the handle of his umbrella, which was still keeping the rain off of him, and the ground exploded around him, shredding the universal pull that had been used to try to get him. When the dust settled, Naruto looked up and saw the 6 defenders of the village and the 7th, with paper wings, flying above them. The Rinnegan was with them. There are black circles inside of purple ones. When he felt another pull on his shirt, his smile almost got bigger. He looked at one of the paths and his eyes grew big. Pain's Diva path let out a gasp of surprise and shot at Naruto. The boy lifted his other hand and rolled his wrist. The path spun around the child with blinding speed until Naruto stopped the movement, pointed at the flying paper woman, and sent the path's body there as fast as a bullet. The path cracked his head on the head of the Angel of Aim, sending both of them into the side of the cage's tower. The Diva path's head caved in, and Conan's head was broken. She was unconscious. Naruto hummed, and the ground opened up under the human and Naraka paths, swallowing them up to their necks. He flicked his wrist again, and an invisible force hit the head of the centipede that was coming at him, destroying the animal summons and spraying its green blood into the air. Naruto's palm was facing the path he would take in the air, and the child brought him straight down to the ground without making a sound. Phew! Naruto clenched his fist and pulled it back, like he was going to punch the air. The ground broke apart as the animal path was violently pulled toward the person who held the superior Rinnegan. The boy grabbed the man by the neck and slammed him into the ground with such force that his neck cracked. Even though it was raining, the Preta path could feel sweat on his forehead. Watching how the other kids went down the other paths was like watching a puppet show. The kid with the umbrella never said a word. The fact that the boy was using Rinnegan powers but made the other Rinnegan user feel weak. The boy used them so well and with so much experience that he almost thought the boy was older than him. As his arms were ripped out of their sockets and his knees were blown out from under him in a glorious shower of blood, the path grunted. Like the animal path, he felt a painful pull that threw him right into the hands of the other Rinnegan user who was waiting for him. Naruto grabbed the path by his hair and dragged him on the ground as he walked toward the ninjas who were shaking. The AIM ninjas were too shocked to say anything when they saw the strongest ninjas in their village being treated like a bunch of babies, tossed around like meat bags for a hungry, strong dog that never gets tired. More than a few ran away, while the rest shook as they held their weapons. When Naruto heard the war cry of the Asura path, which was the last path to be dealt with, he didn't turn his head. He grabbed the hair of the path with no arms or legs and swung it at the Asura path. He let go of the hair and pointed his palm at the stunned path as he easily caught the other path. Almighty push, Naruto whispered, and Nagato could only describe how he felt as if an invisible foot had stepped on him and crushed the Asura and Preta paths into paste. Naruto nodded at his work and gave the other AIM ninjas a hard look. Move. His order was done right away. Nagato hobbled around his room and opened the door, but the red-haired king was laughing at him. Naruto looked more closely this time and saw the Rinnegan. I see you have the same eyes as me, Naruto said. He stood up and walked forward, closing his umbrella and hooking it under his right armpit. The older redhead stumbled and stuttered away from the boy. No, we don't. Your eyes. Naruto stopped when Nagato fell back onto his bed and crawled away from the other boys, who were clearly stronger. You really do have the eyes of a god. His hands moved up to cover his face, and he shut his eyes tightly. For the first time since he was a child, he felt like a loser. Your eyes are so much better than mine. When Naruto heard that he had lost, his lips moved up. Nagato bowed his head and waited for Naruto to say more. Naruto said, "Then I have one simple idea for you. Assist me." Flashback end. Conan's crazy love for Naruto could only be explained by the fact that something in her brain must have clicked after she almost lost her head. There was no other way to explain why the woman got a loyalty seal and Naruto's name tattooed on her chest. They were given their ranks, just like Sasori, and just like Sasori, they were gold ranks. For their years of loyalty, Naruto had promised to think about not including the people of Hidden Rain in the global tournament, and to carve AIM out of the ground and temporarily join it with the Flying Kingdom. Naruto was hesitant to do this because he didn't want anyone else besides his people to be called Tsukai citizens, either officially or unofficially. His spies on the ground were a different story, but to add a whole hidden village to his home. The next best thing would be for AIM to be a separate flying landscape that was tied to the Tsukai kingdom both physically and symbolically. He didn't care much if his people thought the people of AIM were not as good as them. He was just rewarding Nagato and Conan for being loyal to him. Even though tying AIM to the Tsukai kingdom by making it a flying island was risky, he promised to use his resources to protect the hidden village. This included the soldiers he had put in the village and the low-level technology he had given the ground ninjas. His goal was to keep those who were very loyal happy, which would keep them loyal. Nagato knew that Naruto didn't want AIM to become a full part of the Tsukai kingdom, but the less powerful Rinnegan user was happy to have the godly teen watch over his home. Even though Conan was in the same situation as her friend, she was more likely to be eternally grateful to Naruto for making AIM a better place by being there. It was because of this that she gave Naruto her body and soul to use as he saw fit. Naruto was also able to use Nagato to confirm that his Rinnegan was probably the strongest one ever. Nagato began by saying, "First order of business," as his powerful Rinnegan eyes shined in the dim meeting room. When he looked at it, the Jito statue behind him groaned, bowed a little, and its four open, different-colored eyes lit up. 4 beasts with tails were locked inside and froze in place. As the leader of the criminal group spoke, the members of the group slightly bowed their heads out of respect. "Zetsu, do you have any idea where the other tailed beasts are?" Both the beasts and their owners had mysteriously vanished from the surface of the earth. The plant man, who was now only his white half because his black half was staying on the field to watch what was going on, nodded. The only people who really knew where the other animals were the 3 spies. Before he spoke, Zetsu moved in place. "I think the Tsukai forces took the 2, 3, and 8 back to their kingdom, wherever that is. The 7 Tails has been hiding for 2 years after Kakuzu, and Hidden attacked Waterfall and failed to get her back. They don't want another attack, so they threw her out." The plant man looked back at the person who held the Rinnegan and then went on. When he said, "When I was following her trail, I saw some strange and unusual things." He ran through words in his head to explain what he meant. I don't know what else to call it. Nagato and Conan both kept their mouths shut. The 7 Tails holder spent about a week in a 5-star hotel in Lightning Country's capital before she moved on to Iron Country, which is far, far, far north of Lightning Country, which is pretty much at the south of the continent. She was able to move from Lightning to Iron, 2 polar locations, in about 2 days instead of 2 weeks, at best, Zetsu thought. As I followed the trail, it looked like she flew there and only landed on the ground to rest before taking off again. The 7-tailed beetle has wings, so maybe she was able to use that power, Kakuzu said from the bottom left corner of the table. I've been watching her since she was a baby, and she doesn't know how to do that with her tail beast, he said, then shook his head and kept talking. After she was kicked out, she had nothing but the clothes on her back, a kunai pouch, and a single water bottle. She would have had to cut off an arm, a leg, a kidney, and half of her brain to pay for a single night in that 5-star hotel, let alone a week. I know she stayed a week because I was able to look at the hotel's logs. Do you think some rich guy or girl took her in and paid for her to stay? Didora asked out loud. That's very kind, Maybe they were beating the living daylights out of her in the hotel. So they took a Chunin Jinchuriki who was pretty good at controlling her tailed beast, and turned her into a sex slave. Kisama laughed. That's so funny. He's right. That girl, Fu, gave Hidden and me a little trouble before the reinforcements came, Kakuzu said. Zetsu said matter-of-factly, I didn't say she was turned into a sex slave. I told you I saw that girl grow up, so I knew how strong she was, and that girl is stubbornly strong. I also remember saying that her trail went cold in Iron Country, he said. He didn't shout to stop the other S-ranks, besides the leader and Conan, from laughing at his joke. The plant man used his stiff hands to straighten out his black cloak with red clouds on it, and then he cleared his throat. I'm starting to think that this Sukai kingdom has had a big impact on a lot of things. So far, they've shown that they're very powerful, so it's not hard to believe that they have a lot of money to pay for the girl's hotel room and get her to Iron. I'm not sure, but I think they recruited the girl, helped her change her name, and sent her to Iron as a spy. Sasori asked, "Are you sure about this?" Zetsu gave him a sharp look and answered, 100%. I wasn't fast enough to see the Kumo invasion, and I barely caught a glimpse of the Mist invasion. But all of the soldiers have seals on the bottoms of their boots that give them a limited ability to fly, and they have big metal vehicles that carry soldiers back and forth that can fly. It's not hard to imagine that the 7 tails was taken in one and taken to Iron. They hadn't talked about the 9 tails at all. I want you to go to Iron Country and find the girl, no matter how long it takes. If we find her, we can take her when the time is right. By time is right, Nagato meant after the 3 tails were found and sealed. But no one but the 3 insiders knew that would never happen. The leader of the Rinnegan took his eyes off Zetsu and looked at Sasori. Sasori, what have your spies told you about the kingdom hidden in the sky, this rising threat? And the gold-level puppet master told the group what he had found. A girl with mint green hair who looked to be in her mid-teens got down on her knees in the middle of a grassy glade with a quiet huff. Her head was down in defeat, and her shoulders sagged, causing the backs of her hands to touch the ground and her palms to face the sky. She looked scruffy and ragged. Her dark blue long-sleeved shirt was dirty with mud and blood, and her white pants had not been cleaned in weeks. She had let herself down. She was inhaling and exhaling small puffs of air, and listening carefully as black metal boots walked around her in a 5-foot radius. The person was a 14-year-old boy with red hair who wore a red shirt with the kanji for Sky King drawn on it and black ninja pants. Under his clothes was pitch black armor that she had already found was impossible to get through. At least 30 other people in gold armor were kneeling around her in a wide circle, with their hands over their hearts and their heads slightly bowed. This was a sign that they were willing to show respect to the younger teen, who she thought was the leader. They wore the same clothes as the red-haired teen, but instead of having kanji on their chests, they had the kanji for their divisions on their right upper arms. There was a tall woman in a black hunter ninja mask and platinum armor. She was wearing the standard battle clothes for a high-ranking soldier in the kingdom's army. The woman was on her feet, not on her knees like her subordinates, with her right hand over her heart and her head bowed to her boss, the red-haired teen. Nora, who was in charge of scouting and retrieval, stayed in that position as her king spoke to the holder of the 7 tails, who was kneeling in resignation. "I know your pain, Fu," Naruto said in a low voice as he kept walking around the girl, making just a small crunching sound with his heavy-looking boots. He put his hands into his pants pockets and looked at the girl with his terrifyingly powerful Rinnegan eyes. The girl closed her eyes tight and whispered, "No, you don't." Naruto gave her a small, sad smile, which she didn't see, as he said again, "I know your pain," she said, but this time she only sighed and kept quiet. Naruto went on, "I was kicked out of my old home with my twin sister by my own father, who then gave us to my godfather, Orochimaru of the Sannin, to train and experiment on so that I could be a better pawn for my old home." The girl quietly bit her lips as tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. My sister and I never had any friends in our old home, but we were happy to be alone, very happy. My father hated us for things we couldn't help, and he took out his anger on us by throwing us to our goddamned kami like 2 bags of human waste. The soldiers who were farther away from him bowed a little deeper at his tone. Naruto wasn't yelling, but his voice was controlled and calm, which only made it scarier to listen to. "My own father, he let us be used as test subjects for 7 years, broken, bent, poisoned, and cracked, all so that we could better serve a home that never loved us." He stopped in front of the girl on her knees and bent down, making Fu look through her wild green hair into the eyes of power, trembling and shaking with fear, and a strong desire to be near him. "Tell me, Fu, your home, your old home, made sure you trained and practiced from sunrise to sunset, made you see things you didn't want to see and do things you didn't want to do, all to make you a better puppet. Is that right?" She had been denying the truth her whole life. Her home had never loved her. Her heart pounded hard, and she sniffed as her eyes filled with tears. Naruto slowly moved toward her and wiped away her tears. On his moon-pale face was a small smile, so small that he might as well have been emotionless. "I know exactly how you're feeling, Fu. I feel your pain." As Naruto's hand moved away, the girl's head moved just a little bit. "Would you believe me if I told you that there is a whole kingdom of people just like you and me? People who have had the worst luck, flying right above our heads." She wavered in place and looked back down. She shook her head no. Naruto pointed over his shoulder, and Nora came over and dropped to one knee. Her name is Nora, and she is one of my division heads. We used to be in the same slave pen, he said, pointing at a random gold rank soldier with his lower face hidden by a half-skull mask. He lost all the skin on his bottom jaw, and it can't grow back because my godfather used a chemical on him, he said, pointing at a woman with short white hair and an eye patch. She had a whole telescope shoved into her eye and pulled out of the back of her head, Naruto said. The woman nodded politely, and Naruto looked back at Fu, who was subtly following where he was pointing. All of my people had been kicked out of their homes, made outcasts, sold into slavery by their families, taken from their homes, and cursed to never return. Just like me, Fu muttered. If my lord will let me say it, my lord has been the kindest, most generous person we have ever met, and will ever meet. He let us follow him even though we were a burden, and he taught us how to protect ourselves. We fight for our king because he gave us back our humanity and gave us a reason to live. Yes, the kneeling gold ranks shouted as one in response to what their division head had said. King Naruto saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. He gave us a home, a family, and our dreams. Dying for him, now or in the future, is the highest honor we can give our king for everything he has done for us. Yes, Fu felt a fire start to grow in her chest as she took a deep breath. Her shoulders shook and her hands were clenched. The feeling that she was part of something that was just as big as her but also much bigger than her was growing. She wasn't able to control anything, from a small flame to a huge fire. She knew it wasn't an illusion because she was a natural sensor and could tell when someone tried to trick her. Her eyes looked around while her head was still down, and she saw a few of the gold ranks sending her looks from their equally low positions. They smiled at her, and she was glad because she knew those smiles were real. But a question came to her. What could I possibly do? 5 minutes ago, she was surrounded by the gold ranks and severely weakened by the division head, who easily sealed off her control over her tailed beast. It was part of her job to get Jinchuriki when they were needed, so she had to be very good at using seals. How could this king use her, since he had her in his control so quickly? Her body. Naruto tilted his head and said, there is always a right way to get stronger. You just haven't found a good enough reason to do it yet. But before you can get strong, I want you to take an oath of eternal loyalty to me. She wasted no time. I swear on my soul and my body to serve you loyally. Use me however you want, my king. She wanted to be a part of a family. She wanted to have a place where she was welcome. She wanted this so bad. Good. You are now under my protection and the protection of my people. You are now a part of my people, Naruto said as he put his armored fingers on her shoulders and straightened her up so she could look at him. He looked into her eyes, and the corners of his smiled a little bit. I'll give you the chance to get stronger, Fu. All you have to do is take it. I will, my lord, she said and dipped her head. Naruto let her go, and she stayed on her feet. She felt a firm hand pat her shoulder, and she looked to her right to see a woman with her face covered. Fu gave the older ninja a shaky smile. I have a mission for you while you get stronger. Yes, lord. 2 years later, it still felt too good to be true, but it wasn't. 2 months later, the king gave her rank in person, and on the same day, she was given her katana blade. 7. It was the name she had given her blade, and when Naruto gave it to her in the throne room of the royal palace, she told him. He gave her his signature tiny smile and ruffled her hair. It was probably the best thing that had ever happened to her. The girl almost passed out when it did. Teuya and the second Konoha spy weren't too happy that their beloved king had put his precious hand on the head of a girl who wasn't them or the king's dead sister. So when it was their turn to collect their expandable silver rank boots and chest plate, which would link together to form the complete silver under armor when the chest plate was tapped, and they too collected their specially made weapons, the only ones in existence, they began subtly pushing the king away. Teuya called her sniper rifle Singing Angel Blood, and the second Konoha spy called her kickboxing gloves Giant Slayer. They, too, loved the gifts that Naruto, their lord and king, had given them, but they also longed for him to touch them in some small way. Naruto knew what they wanted because it was clear as day, so he gave it to them. He ruffled their hair so the 3 girls wouldn't fight outside the palace. Fu didn't like it, but she kept her mouth shut and bowed to her king when he told them to go back to their ground posts. Tsubuki Kumakai, the girl mentioned above, lifted her head from the small table and looked at the person who had called her. It was a gray-haired man with bandages on his forehead and neck. He looked at her calmly as he poured green tea into a small cup and gave it to the girl kneeling on the other side of the table. The man stayed in his own stiff knee as he poured himself some tea into his cup. The girl looked at the leader of Iron Country, whose face was etched with a frown, and nodded. She lifted her hands from her thighs, took the cup in her hands, tilted it into her mouth a little, and put it back on the table in time with the leader. I have a mission for you that is one of the most important. I understand, sir, she said, but if that's why you wanted us to have tea, you could have told me in your office. She put her hands back on her thighs and looked at the older samurai with raised eyebrows. Her tan face stayed professionally neutral, but her small dark purple painted lips quirked down. I also wanted your personal advice. With all due respect, sir, I think the Iron Country Council is better suited to give you advice than I am. I am still too young to give you good advice on things, sir. She frowned deeply and bowed her head down to the table. I'm sorry for my outburst, sir, it was wrong. It's fine. I'm just using your knowledge as a former ninja to know how to best appeal to the major village leaders. I'm organizing a summit of all the major village leaders so we can all deal with the rising threat of the Tsukai Kingdom as one unit. They have shown us that they are better in terms of technology, seal work, and skills, but not impossible to beat. Yes, sir. She straightened her white kimono and pulled her sleeves over her hands. She tucked the deep red sleeves over her fingers and put them back on her laps. On the back of her kimono, the kanji for 7 was proudly embroidered in gold. Under her traditional battle clothes, she wore a white midriff shirt, a short white skirt, and white sandals. Under that, she wore her silver rank armor, which was hidden by a chameleon impersonation jutsu so that her armored fingers looked like her normal tan skin and her torso looked like silver chainmail. She also had a dark red obi around her waist, and like her leader, she had bandages around her neck and just under her chin. She blinked her red eyes, which were hidden by special contact lenses that Tsukai had given her. She tilted her head to the side just a little so that her straight, white hair fell down her shoulders. It was a wig to cover her real hair. What's the mission, sir? I want you to find out the full extent of what the Tsukai forces did to the Lightning, Spring, and Water countries. I want witness reports, survivor testimonies, physical clues, and anything else that gives us an idea of their abilities and limits so we can plan how to take them down. If you can find out the exact location of the kingdom so we can attack them before they attack us, then do so. I won't let you down, sir, she said. It wasn't the first time the leader of Iron Country sent her on a high-ranking mission alone. Because he trusted her so much and she was a samurai, he told her what he wanted to do. Even though she was once a ninja. 2 years ago, when she was dropped off in front of Iron by a support drop-off vehicle of the Rescue and Support Division, wearing her wig and contacts, she was not welcomed into the samurai society. Just knowing how to be a ninja, which was a dishonorable job in the eyes of the samurai, was a taboo and the same as being blacklisted in the country. No one wanted her in their shops, no one wanted her in their homes, and no hotel wanted to let her in. Even though she had a lot of money from the Tsukai Kingdom, no parent wanted their kids to even look at her. She was treated like dirt, but the only thing that kept her from running away was that her hero, Naruto, had given her his trust. She spent months alone in the woods, going over the samurai mannerisms, exercises, and training tips. She was sent regularly. Most of her skills as a samurai she learned on her own, and it was those skills that she used to save a small village that was being overrun by bandits. It didn't change their opinions much, but they let her stay in a small hut on the edge of the village. After she saved the village from 2 more attacks by the vengeful bandits, they finally let her sit with them during village meetings. Mifune, the leader of the country, had heard about a highly skilled samurai in one of his villages who had been protecting the village for about 8 months without being paid. He watched her for 4 more months before calling her to the country's capital to be evaluated and given a proper rank in the samurai forces. The first thing that got his attention was her blade, a katana she called 7. It was made of a strange red metal with a black hilt and guard. There were 7 seals etched into the metal. All of them looked to be at least level 9, but none of their seal experts could read them at first glance. Fu, now called Fubuki Kumakai, told Mifune that it was the blade her master gave her before sending her away. She told him that because of her pride, she couldn't tell him how her blade worked unless she was in battle. The old samurai could respect that in her desire to become a real samurai. After her evaluation, she was given the Elder rank, the second highest one after leader. Only 15 other samurai had this rank, and all of them were well over 50. Mifune saw that the girl had the potential to grow, so he gave her a permanent home in the capital and sent 5 master-level samurai to the village she was guarding to take her place. The samurai in the capital still didn't like her because she used to be a ninja, but they soon had to admit that she didn't act like a ninja and didn't fight like a ninja. They also had to give her the respect that came with her rank. When can I leave, sir? After I hear your opinion on how to best appeal to ninjas. The 3rd day of the week. Border of Amagakure, outside in the rain. Amagakure no Sato. Naruto called out to her brother, "Hey, coach," as she jumped up on her feet and shadow boxed an invisible opponent in front of her. She gave him a sly grin while he held the Rinnegan and rolled his eyes at the roll she had given him. She threw punches so fast that they were hard to see and spun on her heel for a quick roundhouse kick. Yes, sister. They were standing 5 feet away from the rain wall of the hidden village, staring into it at nothing in particular. Naruto, on the other hand, was in deep thought as he looked at the rain while Naruto waited for his call to go inside. "Got any tips for me?" she asked, then threw 5 punches forward, bent her left elbow up, and spun around to hit her opponent in the face with the other elbow. "This guy fought my father and was able to hold his own for a while, so I'm guessing he's really strong now, maybe even stronger than Orochimaru. I have no idea what to expect from that guy, to be honest," she said as she threw an uppercut at her opponent and turned to Naruto, putting her hands on her hips and tilting her head to the side. Naruto's smile slowly grew as he turned his full attention to his sister. He was impressed that she didn't let her pride get in the way and instead asked for advice on how to defeat the unknown foe he had given her. She kept smiling back and blushed when she knew what was on his mind. "I'm glad you asked, sister. Do you remember what your godfather said about the Uchiha clan? Their Sharingan can predict how their opponent will move." "Yes, but you can stop that if you're faster than they are. What I mean is that the Sharingan can make very strong illusions whether you look into it or not, but it's stronger when they look into your eyes. So you need to be careful that you're not always fooled." She nodded with thoughtfully raised eyebrows. "Noted. Like you said, this guy was able to fight almost as well as my father, so he's not someone to take lightly, no matter how tempting it might be." Sasori said that when he was recruited, the masked man was serious, but his front in the Akatsuki is playful. "You can mess around with him, I don't mind, but watch out for any tricks." "Alright, I'm not sure about this, but I'll still tell you, after I sucked Danzo's soul out, I was able to gather his memories." "You were?" He started, but shook his head to stop himself from going into an in-depth explanation of the path of the Rinnegan that let him do it. Instead, he chose to help his sister mentally prepare for her battle with the masked man. "It's something my Rinnegan lets me do," he said to stop her. "I know, it's too strong, but it works very well. Like I was saying, I was able to figure out from his memories that he thought the Sharingan had 2 higher forms. There is the normal 3-Tama form, then another level, and then a final level. He called the next level the Mangekyo level, but I'm not sure about the last one. It's going to take a few hours to fully explain the crazy theories that old man was making up about." Naruto snorted and patted his shoulders with her hands. "It'll be fun, don't worry," she said. She was wearing the combat uniform from the other day, with her ninja weapons strapped on and a tanto slung over her back. Her long red hair was pulled back into a short ponytail. "I wanted to take him and everyone else in the Akatsuki down by myself at first because my Rinnegan makes it so much easier. If he gives me trouble, I can crush his head like a grape." His eyes narrowed, and he put his hands on her shoulders and stared into her eyes seriously, making her look back at him with a serious, neutral expression. He moved his head to the side and looked at her ear, nodding at the white earbud that was in her ear. "If you are having trouble, don't be afraid to ask for my help. I do know, I promise." They split up and bumped fists. Naruto smiled in an evil way, and she did the same thing back to him. Both of their eyes darkened. "Casual entrance or epic entrance?" he asked her, and she grinned. "Epic." 5 minutes later, Tobaya Baido Madara like standing on the roof of the Ainkage Tower in the rain. It made him feel like all his sins and wrongs were being washed away. It made him feel something like happiness. Near him, Kasama and Itachi sat with their legs crossed and stared blankly at the houses a little bit away from the tower. They also liked the rain. Kasama for obvious reasons, but for Itachi, it was his way of making up for all the deaths he had caused. When he closed his eyes, the night he killed his parents and scarred his brother for life kept playing over and over in his mind. It was why he didn't sleep more than an hour. When they felt a huge, bone-rattling blast of chakra coming from above them, all 3 of the high-ranking ninjas turned their heads sharply. Kasama was shocked when he saw a huge burning ball of fire, a meteor, hurtling from space toward the village. The one-eyed Uchiha slowly opened his mouth, just as the village's alarm started going off. What in the F? The meteor sped up a lot and hit the ground before Itachi could get to his feet and try to stop the ball of fire. Thum, the fireball hit the ground in a large training area close to the Cage's tower, which was about a kilometer away, but very far from any homes. After it landed, the ground shook and huge clumps of earth flew up around it. It sizzled as the rain cooled down the fire on the rock. 9 ninjas landed around the crackling rock and stood up straight as they narrowed their eyes at it. They watched as the rain cooled the rock enough to show that it was coal black. Crack. The black rock split in the middle and opened, letting out small puffs of white smoke as it did so, to reveal two twins with red hair standing inside. The man was standing with his arms crossed, and the woman was sitting with her legs crossed before him. They had sinister smiles on. Obito narrowed his eyes when he saw the boy. His black underwear and eyes that looked like gods made it clear who he was. He figured out who the girl was because she looked so much like the king that it almost made him dizzy. King Naruto, the man whispered as he turned on his Sharingan and made it change into its highest form, the eternal Manjiki Sharingan. Naruto opened his arms wide, and his sister jumped back to her feet, cracking her fists, and staring intently at the only person in a mask there. My name, as he started, turning around in a full circle and looking at each and every member of the Akatsuki, from Sasori to Deidara. He smiled widely and went on. My name is Naruto, and I am the king of the Tsukai Kingdom. He put a firm hand on his sister's left shoulder, and they quickly looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes. This is my sister Naruko, the queen of the Tsukai Kingdom. The girl almost fell over when her brother said this, and she gave him a quick glare because he had a happy look in his Rinnegan eyes. Really? You're doing this now? She whispered quietly, and he nodded. We've come to break up your organization, he said with a twinkle in his eyes, patting her shoulder twice. Sasori, Conan, stand down, he told them, and to the shock and anger of the other ninjas, the two named S-rank ninjas bowed deeply and walked away. Deidara yelled at Naruto, what makes you think you have a chance against all of us, kid? He had just found out that his partner worked for the king of the Flying Kingdom and was still trying to get over the shock. Why don't you come find out? He asked, putting his hands in his pockets. His sister stood behind him and kept staring at Tobai with blank eyes. He said to Obito, your opponent is my sister. The rest of you, make sure you don't hold back, or it will be your downfall. Hidden screamed, fuck, and spun his scythe in his hands while grinding his teeth at how sure the teen was. I'll cut off your dick and shove it down your throat. Then I'll make you watch while I fuck your slutty sister into a motherfucking coma. You're passionate, I'll give you that, but hidden words can only take you so far. Now please, let's fight. He took his hands out of his pockets and looked into Itachi's eyes without worrying that he would be tricked. He held out his hands to the older ninja and bent his fingers back to his palm twice, signaling for him to attack. Let's go, Obito said. Out of character, when I'm done with your sister, I'll come after you. Naruko also lifted her hands and got into a fighting stance, holding her fists close to her eyes and bending her knees just a little bit. The Uchiha agreed that it was an impressively guarded kickboxing stance. She seemed to have done her homework, since she wanted him to attack first so she could see how he fought. He usually wouldn't give in to her, but his desire to get Naruto's Rinnegan overcame him. So he rushed. After 5 minutes of non-stop, fast-paced fighting, the masked Uchiha knew a lot about Naruko and a little bit about what she could do. Her skin couldn't be broken. Her bones couldn't be broken. She moved quickly and smoothly, and the way her godfather had changed her already high Uzumaki stamina made it seem like she had the strength and stamina of a bubbling volcano. He threw out his fists, and she slapped them both down one after the other. She lifted her right knee to hit him in the side, but the Uchiha just barely moved out of the way and hopped away. He looked down at the dozen or so broken kunai and shattered shuriken he had used to try to hurt her but had broken when they hit her. The girl followed where his Sharingan had quickly looked, and she smirked sharply while holding her fists up in a strong stance and bouncing on the balls of her heels. Both fighters rushed toward each other as Tobai's eyes narrowed. Naruko got to the older ninja and skidded on her knees when she saw the muscles on his knees preparing for a kick. She slid one knee under the attack as it happened and spun around, hitting the masked man in the middle of his back as 3 adamantium claws shot out of her knuckles, piercing his back and coming out of his stomach. She frowned when her hand went through his body as he turned into nothingness and then exploded into chakra smoke. She straightened up and held up her clawed fist. With a smooth click and a slight tightening of her hand, the blade slid back into her arm. Her big purple eyes squinted, and she wiggled the fingers on the hand she held up to block out the noise from her brother's fight with the S-rank missing ninjas. This left her with only the sound of the rain hitting her body, which partly blocked her senses while she was sleeping. Ninjas often had the ability to hypersense. It was when a person's natural senses were good enough for him or her to be able to make a detailed map of his or her surroundings in his or her mind if he or she focused. The Nidaime Hokage, Tobirama, was a hypersensor, but he could only use it by touching the ground with his hand or bare feet. The Yondaime Hokage, Minato, was also a hypersensor and a touch sensor, just like Tobirama. As long as they touched the surface they were trying to map, they could both get a detailed map of a building, a room, or, when they had enough chakra, an entire hidden village. Scientists came to this conclusion after looking at more than 50 hypersensors, which were all touch sensors. The twins were born with the ability to sense things, which they got from their parents. However, while they were with their godfather, they became even more sensitive. Naruto's Rinnegan, on the other hand, made his hypersenses so strong that he could sense people miles away even when he wasn't fully concentrating. Naruto didn't have Naruto's godly eyes, but her hypersenses were nothing to laugh at either. The red-headed female twin rolled her wrist, and a solid bar of adamantium slid out of her right hand. She broke the unbreakable metal in one swift move and stuck it into the ground right away. The ground broke, and her eyes lit up. She turned her head to the right and ran toward Uchiha, who was watching in silence. He still didn't give her enough credit. She just had to show him that she could be just as dangerous as her godly brother. Even though he had his chakra perfectly under control, the masked man's jaw tightened when he saw her sense him, and he crossed his arms as she threw a kick at his chest. Even though Naruto looked Itachi in the eyes and signaled for the Uchiha killer to come at him first, it was the zero-tailed beast that ran straight at him. Hidden charged at Naruto. Deidara stayed back and fed clay into his hands, and Kakuzu and Itachi both decided to wait to attack for now and watch the Rinnegan teen for any openings. When Naruto saw all of this happen in an instant, he smiled evilly and clapped his hands together. He then spread his arms out wide, and a 7-foot-long black chakra rod flashed into view. The king caught the chakra rod in his hands and turned in a tight circle away when Kasama slammed the sentient blade into his old position, breaking the rod over his knee as he still turned and cracking both rods on the Kiri-missing ninja's shocked face. The king was surprised that the boy had been able to dodge at the speed he was going. Naruto ended his multiple, very fast spins by slicing the rod in his right hand through the head of the same Hada so hard that it sank into the ground. He then flipped over the painfully squeaking sword and used the bottom of his metal boots to catch the Jashin priest's three-pronged scythe. As sparks flew from the contact, the shaking sword of scales screamed even louder. Plink, sque. Hidden skidded back with a deep grunt when Naruto moved his foot away. As a result, Naruto flipped backwards and landed on Kasama's shoulder as the zero-tailed beast struggled to pull Samehada out of the ground where he was stuck. The man cursed as Naruto landed hard on his shoulder. He couldn't say anything else because Naruto stuck the rod in his left hand into the shark man's head. Naruto let out a low laugh as he jumped off the man's shoulder. When Kasama jumped into a puddle of water to avoid a clay bird that fell from the sky and exploded on the struggling sword, his lips turned up. Boom. Naruto landed on the ground and ran back to Hidden as soon as he could. Hidden ran back at him as soon as Naruto got his bearings. The priest gave Naruto a sadistic grin and swung the deadly weapon at him. Naruto jumped over the attack. When he landed and jumped up twice, it was clear that he was waiting for Hidden to attack again. Damn it, you little brat. Who the fuck do you think I am? An immortal training dummy, Naruto said without missing a beat. He bent backwards as a blade came at him, but his left hand shot out and caught the blade before it could hit him. He stood up in a flash of red and pulled the scythe toward himself. The priest wouldn't let go, so he flew toward Naruto. The Rinnegan king grabbed the immortal by the face and swung him to his right, smashing the priest against Kasama, who had risen from the ground without his weapon and was coming at him with murderous intent. Hidden's feet hit Kasama's wet head with a loud crack, and Naruto swung Hidden again, knocking away 3 clay birds. The Jashinus screamed in anger, his voice muffled by Naruto's hand. He tried to swing his weapon again, but his eyes widened in horror as the blade broke completely against Naruto's neck. Naruto's eyes snapped to him and his horrifying grin grew, his eyes going crazy as he forced the man closer and pulled down his shirt to show the coal-black armor that covered his whole body, from the base of his chin to his toes. Obsidian metal that can't be broken and is cursed. The king grabbed the stunned priest's weapon arm, horrified that the priest's weapon had broken into pieces for the first time since he took it from his home village, Hidden Hot Springs. The 3-bladed scythe was now a black metal pole with small metal spikes where the blades used to be. Naruto asked the man, "What are you going to do now?" as he ripped off the priest's weapon arm and used it to hit Hidden away. The body of the immortal man flew through the air and landed in the middle of the village, spread out like an eagle. Swing and miss, until he breaks his weapon and stops talking, Naruto said as he slowly looked over his shoulder at Kasama and tried to pull his legendary weapon out of the ground where it was stuck. He tried to pull the metal rod out, but as soon as his fingers touched it, he felt a strong pull on his chakra. He just barely let go before he lost any more. Naruto raised an eyebrow in amusement at how hard the man was trying to get the screaming scaled sword out of his hands. And you telling me you can't fight without your same hada in your hands or on your back? One of my servants told me you could fight without it anywhere near you. Naruto whipped the metal pole in his hand, throwing away the arm that had been holding it, and spun it in his hands. Clay birds exploded at his sides, but they didn't hurt him. The Rinnegan King stopped and slammed the end of the pole on the ground. He looked at the Iwa ninja standing on a big clay bird away from him and was not amused. Is that all you can do? Drop bombs and hope for the best. Naruto threw the pole into his right hand and grabbed it in the middle. His black eye with red rings narrowed on Deidara, and the Iwa ninja saw what the teen was going to do with Hidden's broken weapon. Before the blonde man could start flipping through hand seals, Naruto threw the pole at Deidara like a javelin and gave it a slight push with a wind jutsu to make it go faster. From Kakuzu and Itachi's point of view, it was like seeing lightning strike the young S-ranks in the forehead. The clay bird hit the ground with a low explosion, sending Deidara's dead body a few feet away. Naruto turned away. Unimpressive, if I'm being honest, Naruto said with a disappointed sigh as he lowered his head, closed his eyes, and shook his head. His mood got better when he felt a green chakra tornado come out of nowhere behind him and a water dragon crash down from the sky above him and eat him. The Uchiha didn't think the fight with Naruto's sister would go as well or as quickly as it did, mainly because all of her training and the improvements to her body and mind that her godfather had given her were still very active and fresh. Not because he wasn't a better fighter than her, but because she had more chakra, more stamina, and a body as strong as titanium. Any blow that hit him would have killed him if he hadn't been quick enough to move away. She had landed more than a few hits. Surprisingly, the girl didn't know that many jutsu, but her taijutsu skills, even though she was 16, were a bit higher than Jounin level. During most of his fight with Naruto, Tobai could only defend himself and strike back. As the Uchiha tried to keep up with the fast girl, his Sharingan pulsed. Naruto stabbed forward twice and pushed the older ninja back, but she kept going, alternating between left and right, until Tobai felt chakra pulse under him and an earth clone's arms came out of the ground and wrapped around his legs up to his knees. The Uchiha had no trouble getting out, but the delay gave the girl with the iron bones time to catch up. The next thing he knew, she was about half a foot away from him and covered in toxic green chakra. Heavenly whirlpool destruction. 120 body strikes, the girl said as her eyes got almost as small as slits and she bent her knees and clenched her hands in preparation. As the girl used her chakra to cover her body, the ground under her cracked and groaned slightly downward. The jutsu she called for was Orochimaru's version of the famous Hyuga jutsu. Tobai froze in place and felt like she couldn't do anything as her muscles tightened and her solid stance got even stronger. She glared at him with narrowed eyes and clenched her teeth, showing off her sharp canines and other white teeth. Her red ponytail flailed in the tornado of chakra that soon started to spin around her and covered Tobai completely. The evil green chakra took full control of the Uchiha, overpowering his own chakra and holding him in place. When he saw this, his Sharingan eye widened in horror, but before he could Kamui away or make himself invisible, she swung her fist forward and hit him in the right shoulder. Kleck, she gave his right elbow another blow. Crick, a blow hit him even lower on the wrist. Crack. After that, her attacks came faster and took over his body like an invading virus. They spread from his right arm across his torso and into his left side, breaking and shattering his bones as they moved. Her punches and kicks slowly broke down his body, bit by bit and part by part, as fast as lightning and with more force than Tobai had ever seen before. Most of the time, his eternal eyes were blinded by the speed and power of the blows and the bright flashes of green chakra light that went off before and after each blow. When his right leg and pelvis were almost completely destroyed, he took control of his pain-numbed mind. His highly mutated eyes spun in their sockets, and a rippling vortex swallowed his body, pulling him out of the green chakra tornado. Naruto stopped when he saw this. The chakra around her stopped spinning, and she focused on using her senses to find the man. Behind her brother, there was a blink, and her eyes got very big. Naruto. As the water dragon came down from the sky and swallowed Naruto, the king jumped straight up and exploded out of the chakra construct's tail, destroying the dragon in the process. As soon as his feet hit the ground, he was attacked by the angry Kiri missing ninja. When the S-rank ninja's axe kick hit the ground, Naruto moved to the left to avoid it. He then bent down to avoid the roundhouse kick that came next. He jumped over a leg kick and used his right hand to block a kick that was going for his face. The man turned on his heels and kicked Naruto again. The teen's Rinnegan blocked all of the attacks, and he brought them all down by slapping his palms down on them. After the king deflected Kasama's 21st kick with ease, he slid back and charged Naruto with his fists clenched. He punched Naruto in the face, and when the boy dodged a little, his knees came up to break the king's face. The boy saw this coming and slid behind Kasama, but the ninja threw a kick behind him, and when the boy dodged that, his elbow went for the boy's neck. "Don't play with me, you little brat," the shark man yelled when the boy just avoided or blocked his attacks. Naruto had a big smile on his face while this was going on, but it slowly went away as his senses buzzed in his body. His black eyes with red rings slowly got smaller as he saw things faster than most people can understand. The next attack, a palm strike to his chest from Kasama, seemed to stop time, and the ninjas watching him didn't move either. The rain was now just small drops of water from the chakras that floated in the air around everyone. He turned his head to his sister and frowned deeply when he saw her reach for him. Her legs were running fast to get to him, but she was still as the rest of the world. Her body stayed in a running position, but her face was contorted with worry. The king hummed and looked around to see what was bothering him. His eyes stopped on a clear spiral of air slowly forming behind him. It was just like his and Naruto's father's Hurricane all over again. Even though his Rinnegan could see at speeds that would melt any other mind and his body could move at the speed of frozen time, the spiral and the Hurricane seal grew slowly, either in how bright they were or how big they were. In the case of the vortexes, it grew until it was almost as big as a man's body before it went away. Even though he couldn't move, the man in the mask reached out to Naruto with his only good hand, which was his left hand. The godly Rinnegan saw this. The air vortex dropped the Uchiha right in front of Naruto. The Uchiha's hand, which looked like a claw, was only 2 inches from Naruto's right eye. Even a blind person would be able to tell what the man in the mask wanted to do. Naruto's face was emotionless, but he ground his teeth hard and clenched his fists to keep his rage in check. The Rinnegan King turned on his right leg, and with a straight kick from his left leg, he hit Kasama in the heart. After the kick hit him, the Kiri ninja's feet lifted off the ground a little and his body curved away, but he didn't move. Naruto's Rinnegan could still see him moving at high speeds, but there was a small bump on the left side of his back, right where his heart was. The king of the kingdom of Tsukai put his foot down and turned back to the man in the orange mask. His right hand shot up and grabbed the Uchiha's wrist. That's when he finally let his eyes work normally again. Kasama's eyes popped out, and he fell backwards as the sound of Naruto's foot hitting him in the chest blasted everywhere. Thum! The shark man's heart popped out of his back and went in front of him, while the rest of his body shot behind it, sending a stream of red blood toward the king's sister. Naruto kept running forward, but she jumped up and slammed her feet into the back of the flying Kiri missing ninja's head. This knocked his head to the ground and made a wet cracking sound as his skull hit the partly muddy training field. When she looked up, she was relieved to see that her strong brother had the man by the wrist. Tobias gaped as he realized that his hand had been deftly caught by the Rinnegan King. Naruto tightened his grip on the masked man's wrist, and there was a loud crack as the bone broke. He pulled the older man closer and clamped his other hand around Tobias' neck, letting go of the Uchiha's hand that was no longer useful. Naruto tightened his hand so that no air could get into Tobias' lungs and gave him a mild glare. Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan clashed with Godly Rinnegan. Phew! Naruto started with a low hiss, his hand becoming harder around Tobias' neck. Wanted to steal 2 more arms came out from Naruto's shoulders and held the limp arms of the broken masked man apart. These arms were coal black and had the same obsidian armor as Naruto. To get out, they had to tear Naruto's red shirt apart. They were 2 of the Asura Path's 4 extra limbs. My eyes, his voice became low and demonic, and his Rinnegan beat hard. The godly Rinnegan of the boy widened with anger as he felt his eyes easily deflect a Sharingan Genjutsu. 2 more obsidian armored arms grew out from under Naruto's normal arms, giving him a total of 6 arms, 2 pairs of Asura body modifications, and his normal arms. The scary and amazing thing was that Naruto's powerful control over the Asura path didn't end there. The orange mask was ripped off by the right extra arm, and Naruto grinned evilly when he saw another evolved Sharingan in the Uchiha's eye socket. His left hand blurred over the body of the Uchiha, sealing off all of his chakra so he wouldn't try and pull any stunt, just like he did with Mei Terumi, Mizukage of Kiriagakure, when he defeated her during the Tsukai Kingdom's invasion of her village. After this, blood ran down Abido's chin, and he clenched his teeth to try to move his body, but it didn't work. Naruto did not recognize the man, nor did Itachi and Kakuzu step in to help, and even if they did, Naruto dropped down behind Abido, in front of Naruto, and glared at the others' ranks to stay back. keeping her brother safe while he dealt with the person she used to fight. Naruto controlled the lower left arm to widen Obito's left eye, and he used the lower right arm to pluck the Sharingan out. Obito screamed out in pain as Naruto did it slowly. As Naruto sealed it on the palm of his lower right hand, a small puff of smoke came out. He repeated this with the other eye of the Uchiha and sealed it away as well, leaving the Uchiha with hollow, empty eye sockets and panting for air as his body still refused to move. "You will suffer," Naruto said in a low voice. The additional Asura arms melted back onto Naruto's usual arms, making him mildly aware of the rain fell down on Naruto's black armored torso, soaking into his back pants but not entering his armor, keeping Naruto dry and warm underneath the armor. The king clenched his teeth and did it. For the effort, he was going to have Hamato Toshi, the head of the Intelligence and Interrogation Division, get every piece of information out of the body of the man who had been wearing a mask. He didn't care if torture was used. He had originally planned for his sister to kill the man, but since the man had come after Naruto's Rinnegan, which showed that he knew about the power of the eyes, Naruto wanted to know what he planned to do if he was successful, or if there was an ulterior motive the Uchiha had helped in forming the Akatsuki. Naruto knew Hamato very well. When it came to getting information out of people, Hamato was very clever. He called for a rescue vehicle by tapping his ear with the hand that wasn't holding the Uchiha's neck in a vice grip. "Sis," he called to Naruto, and the girl slightly looked over her shoulder, still keeping a vigil eye on the other two silently watching Akatsuki members. "Would you like to deal with them?" Before she replied, her eyes were sad for a moment. "No, I still have a lot of things to learn before I can face a S rank like them. I was just lucky to have this body and my chakra, if not I would have been toast." Naruto threw the Uchiha down and patted Naruto on the shoulder as he went by. "We still have a few days before we go to Konoha, so if you want, I'll help you train." She gave him a shaky smile. "Man, thanks." He gave her a nod and walked past her toward Itachi and Kakuzu. As he got closer to them, Itachi and Kakuzu changed their fighting styles, and his Rinnegan eyes lit up with power.
So this was it for today. I will continue this story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.